The Milwaukee Bucks are falling apart, and following another embarrassing loss, this time to the New York Knicks, Giannis Antetokounmpo had a post-game conference in which he revealed some harsh truths about the Milwaukee Bucks this season, but he also had some very interesting things to say to someone behind the camera. So I want to break down those quotes and discuss what it can mean going forward, as the person who it could be may surprise you. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, quick reminder, hit that subscribe button. If you're a part of the 80% who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Bucks content, and we're on the road to 1,500 subscribers. So if you're enjoying it, make sure to hit that subscribe button. But there's a lot to go over today, everybody, and unfortunately, the Bucks had a brutal loss yesterday against the New York Knicks, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to do the post-game video, so I apologize for that. But it was the second night of a back-to-back. They're playing a very good New York Knicks team who was struggling a little bit this season as well, and they got absolutely curb-stomped. And post-game, Giannis had a ton of things to say, but he also called out somebody behind the camera, and it's very interesting. So let's just start with his quote. He said, "Are we not okay with competing? I don't know. I'm not okay with that stuff. As a leader of this team, can have your head down. You can be frustrated. I'm frustrated." And it's interesting here. If you're not frustrated with losing, get the F out of here. Simple as that. It starts with competing. We got to compete. I feel like sometimes we take this stuff for granted. I'm a guy that doesn't take it for granted, and I try to compete whenever I can. And of course, he went on to give Doc props for adjustments and great speeches. But at the end of the day, the guys that play got to go out there and try to compete. So the word of the day is compete and being frustrated, because you can see at top, you can be frustrated. I'm frustrated. So there's a few things to go over here. Obviously, they had a very embarrassing loss against the New York Knicks, and that's never going to be great for the team morale. However, what's interesting here is that, again, we're going to get into some of the more juicy stuff in a minute. It's a very good point. Like, they go up against the New York Knicks. It's the second night of a back-to-back. They're without Drew Holiday. All of these things are working against them, but they don't even show any effort. They don't show any compete, for lack of a better word. They're unable to go out there and just have a solid game where everybody plays well. I mean, they had a decent game against the Utah Jazz, but even then, every game in between that has not been good whatsoever for this team, and it's leading to the fact that now Giannis is starting to get frustrated. Again, you can put your head down, you can be frustrated. I'm frustrated. It starts with competing. He's calling out his teammates a little bit here, and it's at the point now where I'm not exactly sure where the Bucks go from here. They obviously just got to keep fighting, hopefully get Chris Middleton back healthy. Hopefully that changes some things here. And you can see this here. Came to New York, lost by 30. We don't compete. I'm not okay with that stuff. And he said to somebody off camera, "Hey man, if you don't want to be here, you can leave." Now, the speculation has been running rampant. Some are saying that's a teammate. Some are saying that was, Darvin Ham, a coach. It's not confirmed at this point, but this absolutely blew up. I'm on the side of, I'm not exactly sure. It could be a reporter as well, but I think it's more than likely probably a teammate or a coach, because again, like Legion Hoop says here, it's Giannis is someone off camera in the locker room. But regardless of who it is, it's not a great look for the Milwaukee Bucks team. I'm not saying it's a bad look for Giannis, but it's just not a great look for the team in general. They're losing a bunch of games. They're dead last, and they're bottom feeding in the East. They're bottom dwellers. They continue to lose games. And it's at the point now where what exactly are the next steps for these guys to compete? And as you look at the game yesterday, Giannis had 24, 12, and 2. Dame had 19. Like, no one really played good yesterday. Tyler Smith off the bench had a very impressive outing, and you got to make the most of your opportunities if you're a guy like Tyler Smith. So to see him come out and do that is very impressive. So shout out to him as well. But I mean, the guys that they have just aren't competing. They aren't playing well. Pat Connaughton had one of the worst layup slash close shot. He ended up fading for he had a wide open layup and he faded and airballed it. Pat Connaughton's time in Milwaukee is almost up. Bobby Portis had another bad game, and Doc Rivers made some interesting comments about him as well. You had AJ Green. He played okay, but, not a great game. Andre Jackson Jr. started. He only played 18 minutes. Like, the team just doesn't look great. Like, look at this bench. Our bench at this point consists of AJ Green, Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, and Ryan Rollins. So it's at a point where it's like, what are we doing with this team? Now, obviously, when you get Gary Trent back and you get Chris Middleton back, it starts to extend the lineup a little bit, but I just don't know if the Bucks did enough in the offseason at this point to justify, being able to win, because we know they're making trade calls across the league to upgrade their team, but AJ Green, I think, can be a valuable player. I think Andre Jackson Jr. had a rough game yesterday, but he can also be a valuable player. It was a game where Dame and Giannis Antetokounmpo didn't play phenomenally. Taurean Prince, again, not phenomenal at him. Like, Bobby Portis, conversation for another day, but I've spoken about him plenty of times on this channel. He's just not a very good basketball player this season, offensively or defensively. So it's at the point now where it's like, where do the Bucks go from here? And again, it seems like the Bucks are falling apart. Giannis is calling out what seems to be his teammate. He's calling out the locker room. He did give props to Doc Rivers, so I don't think Doc Rivers is on the hot seat. I don't think that's necessarily what's going to be happening, but at this point, it's like you don't want to make Giannis Antetokounmpo frustrated. I don't think he's the type to request a trade. We saw some reports come out saying that he's probably not going to get traded. But at the same time, the more you lose, the more rumors are going to be running rampant surrounding the Heat, surrounding the Knicks, all these different teams. And it's like, you look at the New York Knicks team, I mean, Cat dominated the whole game, but everybody on their team played better than the Milwaukee Bucks. And that's what it came down to. And again, are the Knicks a better team than the Bucks? At this point, absolutely. There's no question about it. Do the Milwaukee Bucks have the talent to make a run in the East? Absolutely, no doubt about it. But they need to get healthy and they need to have guys step up. I mean, you're getting a combined 13 points out of 3 out of your 5 starters. Prince with 3, Brook with 7, Andre with 3. You need more than that. When Chris Middleton comes back, he can probably give you 15 points per game. So that should help towards the kind of like, towards helping the bench a little bit. But at the end of the day, they need to get more out of their bench unit. And that's what it comes down to. Because if they don't, they're going to continue to pile up losses. And in the post game, Doc Rivers talked about how he has to find a way to get Bobby going and Bobby more involved. How Brook Lopez needs to take more shots. I wish everything I typed was a joke, but it is not. And yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to give Bobby Portis anything but less minutes. I don't think Bobby Portis fits in this team. I don't think he's played well. Maybe I'm being too hard on him. I just don't like what I'm seeing from Bobby Portis whatsoever, and I don't think that he's a guy that needs to be a focal point of this team's offense on either in the starting rotation or on the bench. I think his time is up. Regarding Brook Lopez, I do think he should shoot more shots. I mean, when you're without Chris Middleton, you're without Gary Trent Jr., without 2 of your starters in theory, Brook Lopez, he's going to have to take more shots because you can't rely on everybody else to score the ball. I mean, again, Taurean Prince he's been fine defensively and on the boards, but he hasn't been good other than that. He hasn't been scoring the ball anyway. So a lot of the guys they brought in, and Gary Trent Jr. and Taurean Prince, they've ended up just being like guys who haven't scored the ball. Like they're playing their roles okay, but they need bench scoring. And that's something they haven't been able to get from any of their bench or starting scoring. They need alternative and ulterior scoring. Compared to, they need alternative people who can score aside from Dame and Giannis. Is at the point where it's like, if you don't have any alternatives to these guys, you're going to continually get boxed. You're going to continually get clamped. Your whole team is going to continue to get defended very easily. And I'm not saying that Damian Lillard got clamped up or anything like that yesterday. He did a little bit. You're also going up against one of the best defensive teams in the league. But it's at the point where it's like, you need this team to really step it up. And ultimately, if they don't do that soon, it's going to be an interesting conversation to be having surrounding Giannis' future in Milwaukee and what they decide to do going forward, because it's a very scary time to be a Bucks fan. The losses continue to pile up, and Giannis Antetokounmpo does not seem happy. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on all of this. It's a very interesting time. Hopefully the Bucks can take care of business in their next game, but things are getting scary in Milwaukee.